Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
Sounds just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Hi there, ho there, hey there. Welcome to the big radio broadcast. It is the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com. Welcome to Hump Day, and thanks for coming in and joining us today. We're diving into it. We're going to be talking about some headlines from around the state here in hour one, including that opinion piece, the editorial that was in Fairbanks that talked about the loss of enrollment in the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District, which was even deeper than they expected. We're going to get into that as well, along with some other stories from around the state and more. And then we're going to be dealing with more with State Senator Mike Shower, who's going to come in and join us in hour two to talk about, well, whatever we feel like talking about. He'll be on for the Shower Hour of Power. Of course, State Senator Shower, also a candidate for lieutenant governor on a ticket with Bernadette Wilson. And so we'll dive into that and keep things rolling. A balmy 34 degrees down here on top of the world in Homer, Alaska. 24 in Fairbanks, 35 in Wasilla right now. But it was 40 last night, Rick says, with the wind. But 24 in Fairbanks, which means welcome to winter. I'm trying to decide what to bring with me to what kind of clothes to bring with me to Fairbanks, and I've decided I guess I'm bringing all my winter gear. God, I just was hoping it was going to be one of those things. And that, of course, is you can come out and see me this weekend. I will be at the Go Winter Expo in Fairbanks this weekend, and we'll be hanging out. Show will be on all this week. We will be off the air on Monday because I will be traveling back on Monday. Now, normally I know in the past it's never affected the show. Well, that was because I either lived in Fairbanks or I lived in Wasilla, and I could just, as soon as the show was over, I would bomb home and, get home by 11 o'clock and drag myself out of bed at 4:30 in the morning the next morning. But it takes a little bit longer to get all the way down to Homer. And so Monday, we will have alternate programming, which reminds me, I've got to send an email. We will have alternate programming next Monday on the programs on both up north and down south as we get, we get there. And yes, you can think of that as a 3-day weekend. You're welcome. You don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to listen to the show on Monday. Because we'll be traveling, but we'll be back on Tuesday with Brad Keithley and Chris Story and everything else, and hopefully it will be a splendiferous weekend. All right, well, let's dive into it here. Let's dive into it here on the headlines and the stories that I want to get to. We are going to get to that. We are going to get to that story. And the editorial there in Fairbanks. But before we get down to it, I do have to, I'm chuckling out loud here at a couple of these things. One of them is, only in a small town. We'll start off in beautiful downtown Houston, Alaska. I don't know if you saw this, But the meeting, the city council meeting on Monday in Houston, got so chaotic. Now, granted, with about a dozen people, just over a dozen people in the audience, and the city council and the mayor up on the dais, it got so heated and chaotic that apparently the city clerk called the state troopers. I mean, this is what's going on up there. They called the state troopers. Now, ironically, it took almost an hour for the trooper to get there. Okay. But the trooper finally entered the meeting at about 8:10 p.m. and stood in the back of the room just as a presence. And I guess everything calmed down. But boy, howdy. It's like an episode of As the World Turns in Houston right now. Apparently, what they were trying to do was they were trying to pick a new city mayor. Current mayor, his name is Carter Cole. And there have been many citizens who have been calling for his resignation. Members of the public basically during the meeting were loudly expressing their opinions, and they accused Cole of wrongdoing, apparently, in trying to shut down the meeting. Apparently, at one point, even let me get to this because this is kind of crazy. At one point, the mayor actually asked the public to step out of the meeting. He asked all the members of the public to leave the meeting, quote, so the council can speak freely amongst themselves without the influence and pressure of the citizens, unquote. Now, the Alaska Meetings Act, the Open Meetings Act, does not allow for that unless it's an official executive session. And several individuals did step out at his request, but more than a dozen, according to the ADN, remain seated, noting just that removing the public without a legally allowed executive session on the agenda violates the state's Open Meeting Act. I mean, I know it would be so much easier if you could just have the public not be there. Apparently, at the bone of contention, the main bone of contention here was that a couple members of the city council one of the city council members apparently is married to one of the nominated mayor, I guess is the answer there. And so there was a question about conflict of interest. They said that Con and Courtney, Callie Courtney, who's on the council, and Jason Con, who was also on the council, they could vote for. The question was, could they vote for each other during the council's mayoral selection? Apparently, they select the mayors from the council. That's how it normally works in the city of Houston, apparently. It's not an at-large. It's basically they're appointed by the mayor. And the current mayor, Carter Cole, said that there was a conflict because the mayor's salary, which is $1,500 a month, represents substantial household income, and voting for each other to receive it violates the city's employee handbook. A whole bunch of them disagreed, noting that council members are not governed by the handbook because they are not employees, which, I mean, again, even the appearance of impropriety. I recused myself several times when I was on the borough assembly, primarily because I felt like I remember one time we were voting on regulations that had to do with borough regulations that had to do with towers. And I recused myself, and the borough attorney agreed that because I worked in radio and we were affected by towers, and that was a big blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I recused myself. So even if just the appearance of impropriety, right, is kind of woggity. Anyway, they had also received guidance from the city attorney that Carter Cole had said that the attorney had sent to him that afternoon that basically said that Con and Courtney could not vote because they had a conflict. The attorney agreed that they had a conflict. Now, interestingly enough, he didn't have the attorney come in that night. He said he had requested the attorney's guidance on conflict of interest because members of the public told him they were concerned about this potential conflict, but he didn't ask the attorney to attend the meeting. He said, I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Well, I'm sorry. Have you met the internet, right? Have you met that you didn't think it was going to be a big deal? Yeah. Anyway, ultimately, the council voted 4-3 to disregard the attorney's guidance to vote whether they could, vote. And they also then they voted down the conflict of interest. Then they held a vote as to whether there was a conflict of interest, to which it was again a 4-3 vote saying that there was no conflict of interest. The long and the short of it is, when it was all said and done, Jason Kahn was voted in as the new mayor. And but again, it got so rowdy that they had to call the troopers. Apparently, there's a lot of back and forth, both across the dais with the members, where they're not supposed to do that, right? You're supposed to have question, and you can have some arguments, but it's supposed to be, but especially across the dais into the audience with the public. I mean, I would have loved to have just been a fly on the wall to watch a little bit, not however many hours this was. I mean, they called the trooper in at 8:10, so it had to have been, and they said it was nearly an hour after it got rowdy, right? That's when the trooper showed up. But I'm just thinking of this little town in Alaska, Houston, Alaska, where things are right. And they had to call the state trooper in to stand in the back of the room and look at them like naughty school children. But it's weird because sometimes it's the smallest towns like this that have the most heat in these kind of situations. But anyway, I thought it was interesting that they had to call a trooper to the meeting I was going to say only in Alaska, but that's not true. We know that this probably happens other places as well. But I mean, I've been in some contentious council or assembly meetings. I've been in some meetings that you would be like, whoa, but never one where they had to call the police to have them come in but I mean, it just proves what I've said all along, that if you get passionate about something, especially if it's an issue that's in front of your elected body, like an assembly or a city council, and you are passionate about it, you can make a difference. They feel your pressure when they're up there on that dais and you're looking at them dead in the eye and you're having your testimony, you're saying your things. The fact that Cole asked people to step out was just like, really? I mean, really? You can't just say step so that the council can speak among themselves freely without the influence and pressure of the citizens. Hey, Jack, you serve the citizens. They want to have influence. This is supposed to be representative, right? So I don't know who's right or who's wrong in this whole thing. I mean, the conflict of interest thing to me seemed pretty cut and dried, even though they overrode it in their vote. But then the mayor, the former mayor now, I guess, calling for everybody to leave the room so that they could have a secret meeting. I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't know. But it seems like it's a little, things are a little wild and woolly in Houston, Alaska. That's all I'm saying right now. All right, we got some other stories. We're going to get to this story out of Fairbanks as well. We're going to talk about that and this editorial, which I am going to tear into a bit because we'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. State Senator Mike Shower joining us in hour 2. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Kevin says that the whole Houston thing is actually out on YouTube. It was interesting to watch. Houston is always very involved in their government, and as they should be, And you know what? Quite honestly, as long as the public is okay with them ignoring the attorney's advice, I guess that's okay, right? I mean, but again, if you get into legal arguments or legal problems, the attorney did tell you certain things, but if you're okay with it, then that's but yeah, it just sounds like wow, why? Wow, what's going on? Let me go back up here. Let's go up here. The Michael Duke Show. You are promoting more winter. Accomplice. Guilty. I know, right? Right? I mean, I just don't. I was walking around yesterday in downtown Homer, and I was thinking, I'd be okay if this is the way it was most of the winter. I mean, I'll admit it, guys. I'll admit it. I dislike the white stuff and the cold. As I gotten older, I just don't care for it. I mean, maybe for a couple, 3-4 weeks, okay, but I am just not, but I can't move any further south, right? I'm about as far south as you can get. But man, I'm all happy for it. Good morning, Paul, over in Kodiak. Thank you for coming on board and doing it. And Frank says, oh, yes, you should be prepared and dressed for the weather to sit at the gun show. Come on, Frank. You know that you got to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. What if my car breaks down? What if something, I'm going to run around outside in a T-shirt? Come on. Oh, don't be that guy. Harold's not here yet. Don't be that guy, Frank. That's all I'm saying. Fox Weather says snow by 11 a.m. here in Fairbanks. Woof. Good morning. Let's see. Remember, the lawyers just giving their opinion. I know. Teresa said, sounds like taking and getting a passing grade on civics should be a requirement to graduate from high school. Well, yeah, I think it is, actually. I think it is. McCabe also reports that he and Mike Schauer went to the establishment of the Turning Point USA chapter at Matsu last night. Ooh, maybe we'll get a full report from Schauer there in hour 2. Good morning, Jeffrey. It's good to talk with you there this morning. Oh, hey, Harold is here this morning. All right. Well, I used his name in vain. Sorry, Harold. Kim says he is so ready for snow. You're a sick man. That's all I could say. Sick man. Fat Ray says the snow stopped being fun when he turned 9. Well, you're just a glutton for punishment then, aren't you? Because, okay. I mean, you could go further south into Canada. Your warm to freedom ratio just scales, unfortunately, said Anthony. I know. Look, I mean, it's better here. It's better than it was. Every time we moved, it's gotten better. Mike Kronk says it's snowing in Tok right now, which is another reason I'm glad I don't live in Tok. That's all I can say. Anyway, I'm all caught up on the comments for this morning. Good morning, my friends. How are you guys doing? Are you ready to dive into this? Mike, I want to know, Mike Kronk, who said it's snowing in Tok. Mike, I want to know, what is the committee doing to get more parental and student involvement in the education task force? Because all we're seeing right now on the agendas is all industry insiders. Where's the parental involvement? I'm asking for a friend, right? That's all I'm saying. I'm asking for a friend. Okay, coming up on it, 10 seconds out. Please like and share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the YouTube-y, yada, yada, did yada. Let's get to it. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
Okay. Oh, man. Lively conversation this morning in the chat room. Apparently, that whole Houston thing is out on YouTube, and you can watch it on YouTube. And so I guess if you're looking for a little cheap entertainment, go on YouTube and take a peek at it, and you could see what's going on there, and take a peek. Just a reminder that early voting has now begun for the Mat-Su Valley, because the Mat-Su has now aligned their local elections to the state/national date. This year, it is on November the 4th. That's the first Tuesday in November. And so early voting has now begun for the 3 Mat-Su Borough Assembly seats and the 3 school board seats that are up for grabs. And so don't forget, you can go out there and you can, vote your conscience and do everything else. You can do it early, or you can do it on the day of. They also have apparently 4 propositions on the ballot. 2 of them are annexations. One would annex parcels surrounding the areas of the existing Meadow Lakes Road service area, and the other one part of Meadow Lake. Basically, they're all around Meadow Lakes. Both annexations, and then there is an advisory vote asking if the borough should impose a temporary. I love the term temporary. If they should impose a temporary 7-cent per gallon fuel tax for 1.5 years to generate $5 million annually for road maintenance and property tax relief. No, they shouldn't. I mean, it's because I love how every time this temporary tax becomes permanent, and then people wonder how we ended up where we got. Right? Or how we ended up where we are today. And then their Proposition 1 is a measure that would allow qualifying seniors, disabled vets, and their spouses and surviving spouses to receive a prorated property tax exemption if they become eligible after January 1st instead of waiting an entire year. That sounds good to me. I mean, again, anything that cuts the taxes down, I'm all about it. So I mean, I look at this whole thing, and if I was sitting in, I never lived in the Meadow Lakes area, but I'm really leery about annexation of anything. So I guess I would be a no on every proposition there, just for giggles. And then we've got a whole bunch of candidates, obviously, for the 3 assembly seats and the 3 school board seats. So don't forget, if you live in the Mat-Su, if you're listening to this on the podcast or on the stream or wherever, don't forget, early voting is right now, and the election is November the 4th. Won't it be great when all the cities are kind of aligned up in the same time so we can figure out what's going on across the state all at the same time instead of this piecemeal thing? Well, now down here in the Kenai, we just voted in. So we're going to be, the Kenai Peninsula is going to be aligning their elections with state elections as well. That's coming. So that's good. Of course, we talked a little bit about the whole No Kings rallies on Monday and some of the craziness that went on down there. But Greg Sarber, who we know as Seward's Folly over on Substack, and who was a guest of the program last week, I guess, he reports in the Watchman on this big shindig. I was having a conversation last night with somebody about the, to me, when I came down into Homer, I understand that this is not the red area of the peninsula, right? The peninsula is pretty red, but that Homer in and of itself was not the stronghold, conservative stronghold, that it's a pretty evenly split community in as far as conservative versus liberal, or progressive versus Republican, or whatever label you want to put on it. But I was having a conversation last night that apparently there's a bunch of new special interest PACs and groups that are popping up around the Homer area. A lot of it, I guess, in response to the death of Charlie Kirk and some of the fighting over the whole freedom of speech thing, and the Homer News deal, and Chloe Plesnek and all that kind of stuff. So apparently there's some, and apparently some of these places have got some deep pockets that they're going to be digging money out of, and they're banging the drum pretty hard. And another example of this was the after the No Kings protest in Homer, they had a town hall that was held at the Ketchimack Bay campus in the right after this big deal. And it was supposed to be a town hall. When you think town hall, you think, kind of an even, this is the getting together. But apparently there were very, very few conservatives in the discussion. And that's where I think we miss the thing where it shouldn't be all conservatives and it shouldn't be all liberals. I think that it's healthy to have a mix of different viewpoints and to be able to talk things through. But, apparently it's an either or thing. But apparently there was a discussion panel that was supposed to represent both sides of the political spectrum, but the organizers obviously don't understand balance. So it was made up of 3 prominent local liberals and moderated by a city council member who Sarber says is left of center. I don't even know who the city council member was, but that's what they're saying. Sarber says if the organizers had been truly seeking an honest community conversation, they would have asked a local conservative to participate in the panel discussion. Apparently, in fact, Representative Vance was in the audience, and she would have been a perfect counterpoint to the folks on the panel. But by excluding her, it demonstrated the partisan nature of the town hall. And apparently things got heated and people were shouting back and forth. And one example was a discussion, of course, of the government censorship came up, and how the Homer News article, and the whole thing with Sarah, and how she apparently was anybody that agreed with the fact that article was poorly written supports censorship. That was the gist of it. Now, I could tell you that the things that she reported were patently false, even later she said, she was just quoting from the New York Times. So that was a dodge on Chloe Plesnek's part on not, being a little more integral into digging into that. I don't want to rehash this whole thing, but anyway, that's what they're supporting censorship. And then, in response to this whole discussion, one liberal audience member replied angrily that it was okay for the reporter to describe Charlie Kirk as a racist because he was a racist, which, again, demonstrably false. I mean, I don't know how you could show video after video after video of Charlie in these long form discussions explaining his views and everything else. Charlie was, he was not a race. You take one sentence out of context about this whole thing and they say, well, that's why he's a racist. But again, taking it out of context, but you can't, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink, right? Another liberal compared the minor edits to Plesnek's article to Nazi book burning. But here's where it really got me. This is where it really caught my attention. Another example of the bias in the questions was the discussion of homeschooling vouchers. One panel member made the point that homeschool vouchers steal money from public schools, and that public schools pass on a common body of knowledge that makes us all the same. Okay. Whoa. She said that this common bond is lost when parents homeschool their children, leading to a fractured society. That was her point, but the whole idea that they're stealing money from public schools and that we all should be homogenized and all come out the same. And that, that fracturing, basically it's our fault for wanting to homeschool our kids, that this fractious society, because again, I would just say that that's sour grapes, because they know that they're losing the battle for hearts and minds, that they know that if they get the children early and indoctrinate them, they can get what they need. But if we pull out of it, it's our fault for fracturing the society. Anyway, it was kind of the last couple of days have been kind of a little eye-opening about some of the folks who live down. Look, I'm go along to get along, right? I just want to have my opinions and be left alone. I'm not trying to change I'm not trying to force anybody to believe a certain way or do anything else. We've all got to live together. But this kind of all or nothing thing is just kind of crazy. And again, when you go talking about this whole idea of the No Kings protest, which is the thing that, nationwide across the state of Alaska and everything else. I don't know, folks, the president was elected by not only the popular vote, a majority vote, but he won all the electoral votes as well. It was a pretty decisive victory, pretty decisive win. And so it's essentially what the public wanted. And if you're out there crying about how this is how democracy dies, this is an expression of democracy in our constitutional republic. Not only the popular vote, which is the democracy side of it, but through the electoral college, which is the representational, constitutional side of it. So this is what the public wanted. You can yell and scream and be upset, but this is how it is until the next election. And then, maybe you guys can get together. I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was just an interesting peek behind the curtain on that. What else do I got here? I kind of wanted to get a little bit into Mia Costello's opinion piece, which Brad talked about briefly yesterday. I don't have a lot of time. But let me just say this. I'm not going to pick it apart. Because I see what she's trying to do here. She's trying to offer practical solutions to create a workforce in the state of Alaska that if a gas line, comes to pass, that we have a workforce that's ready. Okay. And that's all laudable. That's fine. But my problem is this pie in the sky attitude that many politicians have, including Mia. And I like Mia. I think she's a good lady. I really like her, and I don't always agree with her, but I really like. But this whole thing about the stars are aligning for success in the gas line project, how the gas line president sat down and said that we're all fixed and everything, and this project is just around the corner. And no, it's not. Until you can get the economic metrics to work, it's not around the corner. And it does us a disservice. It does Alaskans a disservice if we continue to believe in this pie in the sky narrative that the gas line is just around the corner, because it causes us to flinch and fail to invest our time, effort, and money into things that will actually solve the problems now in the short term by wishing and hoping that this big pie in the sky project will appear next week, next month, next year, next decade. Right? It allows for malinvestment of time, effort, and money, because people, we're expecting it. It's going to be here. And so they put off other things. Look, we still don't have a new pricing. We don't have a new cost. There's no new costing. We're still working on the 10-year-old cost plan that came out under Walker, $44 billion. How much is this pipeline really going to cost? You'll note that Glenfarne and nobody else, Glenfarne included, have come up with a new costing on this thing. As much as I would love to have Alaskan gas, it's not going to happen. I just don't see a way. Now, maybe I'm wrong. But I and the folks that I have read about and the cost, I've been following this project for 20 years. You got Brad Keithley, you got others who, how do you make the economics work? I mean, even the Wood Mackenzie report, 80% subsidy. We're still delivering gas at over market value. How do you make that work with an 80% subsidy? I don't know. Anyway, I got this one final segment coming up, and I'm going to get into this thing in Fairbanks. Enrollment in the FNSB school district is down. Now what? Well, I got some thoughts on this, and we're going to continue with it in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more right after this.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay. Okay. Let me see what you guys have been thinking about while I've been talking. I can't read the chat room a lot of times while I'm talking because you guys distract me so badly. Because I'm on a topic and I'm trying to. Did I miss the school district talk? Said Sourdough Steel. Nope, that's up next. Yep. All right. Let me go back over here. Time to go to Hawaii for 5 months. Mike Cronk responded to my question about the parental involvement in the education committee. And he said he agreed because I said it was just basically industry insiders who were testifying. Same old players. Unfortunately, that's what the chairs decided. I won't be at the Juneau meeting as I think it's a waste of state funds to meet there. Good for you. I mean, I get good for you. You know? Let's see. I'm scrolling down here. How genius. Gasoline sin tax, says Jim. Revocable. Well, I mean, again, that's, I think that's over the Matsu fuel tax. Yeah, I'm just, I'm sorry. I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. Mike Cronk went on to say that he asked to have the education committee meeting in Fairbanks where we can hear from parents that want to start their charter schools as well as homeschool correspondence parents. But of course, they don't want that, Mike. Again, I was just reporting on that story out of Homer. We just saw what one of the reactions, and I'm seeing this reaction more and more now in public discussions, is that it's those damn homeschoolers. And I saw this on a comment tree in both Fairbanks and in Anchorage when they were talking about closing schools. And it's those damn homeschoolers that are causing the problem. They're stealing money from our kids, and they're the reason why our schools are closing. It's the witch hunt. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. So yeah, they don't want to have a meeting with parents who want to start charter schools or homeschools or correspond. No. That's it. David said the 7% tax is temporary. After a year and a half, it will go up to 10. That's a hard no for me. Hard no for me. You did not SDS. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry. Sourdough Steel. Okay. Let's see. Still recall highest friend take out first for each other. Now there was no King's rally. Make it sense. All right. RE the gas tax. If you need the info, Kevin wrote a piece over on Substack about the gas tax. You can read it there. Still scrolling through. Now, at one of our Kodiak churches, a lady told us that Hawaii has a new queen. What? Okay. So Rick says some journalists are idiot. How do they ever get their crap in print is beyond me. Well, and this is part and parcel of and we talked about this before, how we'll get this. Well, it's like Plesnick, right? Chloe Plesnick. Her argument later on, her defense of what she wrote was that she was essentially reporting as material sourced from the New York Times, that Charlie Kirk was a racist white nationalist, right? Or, kind of thing. And the problem is that that's where we've gotten to in today's society, where you reference a source that references a source that references a source. And I can't remember, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Somebody actually did a trace on, I can't remember what the thing was, but they look back to say, okay, who's, that this paper sourced this paper on a topic, on a single issue, that this is where this came from. And they traced it back like 15 steps. And it turned out that it was like literally a blog post from a guy in his mom's basement. I mean, kind of thing, right? That they referenced a blog post, but because it had been referenced so many times and washed through the mainstream media so many times, it became canon, right? It became golden, like, oh, this is the truth. Even though it was originally just some guy posting something that got picked up somewhere that all of a sudden gained legitimacy because it kept being quoted by news media outlets around the world. That's the thing. No kings, says Harold. No kings are attended by folks who didn't bother to vote and probably won't vote again. Maybe. I mean, possibly. Let's see here. We're 20 seconds out. As a homeschooling parent in the FNSB, I'm proud of that statistic, said Sourdough Steel. He's proud of the statistic of the schools being down. Homeschooling is awesome. Good morning. School district will still get their 4 to 9% as long as the kids stay in the district.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay. Let's get into this story. This is from an editorial out of Fairbanks. Okay. And the headline of the editorial reads, "Enrollment in the FNSB school district is down. Now what?" Now, they expected an enrollment decline. They predicted enrollment declines for over a decade. The problem is that it continually is just more than they expected. The declines are always, it seems, more than what they anticipated. And this is a problem not just in Fairbanks, but this is a problem across the state. Same thing happened in the Matsu. The Anchorage School District has lost thousands of students over the last 10 years. I mean, it's I don't remember the number right off the top of my head, but it is in the thousands of students over the last 10 years. And so inevitably that's going to lead to some problems because you're basing your whole school model on a per student funding formula, meaning you get paid for the number of students that are in your district. So when you have fewer students, you receive less money. And when you have fewer students than even you projected, it creates a problem when you're building budgets and things like that, right? I mean, this is an issue. And you'd think that they'd start planning for it based on that, but it's not happening. It's not happening. So the Fairbanks North Star Borough, this is the editorial from the 19th in the News Miner. The Fairbanks North Star Borough School District has lost more than 500 students. And the editorial says, this just isn't just a number. It's a signal. Flat funding inevitably lowers the quality of education. Okay, so right in the first paragraph, there was no flat funding. Now, was the BSA fairly flat? Absolutely. It only had an increase in like 2 of the 7 years, and it was a minimal increase. But that doesn't include all the one-time funding that every legislature included, somewhere between $30 and $160 million a year in additional funding over the course of that same 10-year period. Okay, so this flat funding it's BS. Okay, so that's the immediate flag on the play. for most folks was when you understand the truth and you don't just read the sound bites or read the headlines and think you know what the hell's going on. The flat funding. Yes, the BSA was pretty much flat funded, but you can't not account for all the additional monies that the legislature. Okay, all right, I'm going to get off that. Flat funding inevitably lowers the quality of education, which in turn drives families away from public schools. I don't know how you can equate those two things, why you drive students away from public schools by I guess lowering the quality of education, I guess could. Okay, I get that. It's a vicious cycle. Students leave, funding drops further, which diminishes resources and support. Okay, yeah, it's the doom loop, right? This is what happens when you have a model that's based on student enrollment, right? Parents pull their children from public schools for a variety of reasons. Ideological differences, religious preferences, concerns about safety, including the threat of school shootings, and out-migration driven by economic or social factors. But behind most of these reasons is a common thread: the belief that public education is no longer meeting their needs. 100%, I agree with that. That is the big part of it. They just fully believe that public education is no longer meeting their needs. And instead of using this as a teaching moment, instead of the administrations and everything, we were just talking with Mike Cronk during the break. Mike Cronk is in the chat room. Senator Cronk is a member of the Education Task Force. And I asked him, why aren't they inviting parents and students and teachers, or, why aren't they inviting parents and students to these meetings and instead just having industry insiders? And he said, he agrees that it should be parents and students should be included. And he said, unfortunately, that's what the chairs have decided, which means the fix is in. He said he won't be going to Juneau because he thinks it's a waste of state funds to meet there. And then he said, I asked to have this meeting in Fairbanks where we can hear from parents that want to start their charter schools as well as homeschool and correspondence parents. But the education committee doesn't want to hear it because they're made up of education industry folks. That's the thing. Somebody said, Mike, you've got to continue to remember that education's not about the children. It's a business. I understand that. I got to get to the rest of this because this is driving me crazy. So the school board must look inward, critically and honestly. What can be done to make public education not just acceptable, but enticing? Well, so at least somebody is asking the questions, what are you looking, to internalize and to self-reflect on this? What would it take for families to trust and choose public schools again? It may have gone too far forward to go back, but we'll just assume that it isn't. At the same time, the district must look forward. Budget cuts aren't hypothetical; they're inevitable. Bravo, 100%. Leadership needs a concrete, transparent plan to address the financial reality before it arrives. Kicking the can down the road only compounds the problem. You're telling me, man. Our students deserve better than a reactive system. They deserve vision, courage, leadership, and willing to break the cycle. Okay. To reverse the trend, schools must offer something families want to stay for. The question of what can be done is one the FNSB school board and broader community need to confront head on. This is the editorial board of the Newsminer. Here's a breakdown of realistic, actionable solutions to address both the root causes of the declining enrollment and financial pressures that follow. Some of these have been tried, of course, into varying degrees of success, but that doesn't invalidate their potential for positive change. So then they go on to talk about, they have these bullet points of all these things. Now, the answer is inevitably, and they start off right here, expand specialized programs such as magnet schools, career and technical, dual credit classes with UAF STEM, academies, arts integration, and indigenous language cultural tracks. This is like right out of the playbook, out of the Matsu, right? That's what the Matsu is doing, and they're having tremendous success with it. But also understand that this is going to require cuts in other areas or more money. That's what it's going to take to make this happen. You're either going to have to cut it in some areas, or you're going to have to come up with some new, which they're out of funding anyway. Improve student engagement and outcomes by investing in modern, relevant curriculum and hands-on learning. Haven't you guys been redoing the curriculum every few years anyway with the latest and greatest? Hasn't this already been going on? I mean, they did say that some of this has already been tried, but apparently not just the right way. We didn't have enough money to do that. Recruit and retain high-quality educators, competitive pay, professional development, supportive environments, which again sounds like code for the defined benefits program. So more money there. And they talked about enhanced communication with families and, transparent. But the one thing that they put in here that I think is brilliant, ask why families are leaving and act on that feedback. Why haven't they been doing that the whole time? Bravo. Exactly. Ask families why they are leaving and act on that feedback. That just makes sense, right? And then it says, look, budget cuts are coming. Pretending they're not only makes their impact worse. Now, ironically, down in the recommendations, they include continue to advocate at the state level and push for a more responsive education funding formula that accounts for inflation and rural folks, there's no more money. This is what they're saying. They're basically saying, go push for more BSA. Get a BSA that's got an inflation adjuster. They're asking that more money is not going to fix this. Invite legislators into the schools to experience the reality of deferred maintenance and large. And then my favorite one, the one that's going to cost $1 gazillion, support working families by partnering with city borough services to address housing, childcare, and employment. That has form task forces, including teachers, parents, students, and community leaders. Where's that? Where's that? This is a mixed bag. This article's got a lot of great ideas, but at the same time, it seems to fall back on the same old of government is the solution, and we just need to spend more on it to fix it. So it's a mixed bag. Some great stuff, some horrible stuff. All right, we gotta go. Mike Shower's up next. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Okay. All right, let me see if I can get this. Okay. All right, we got things up and ready to roll. We're going to bring Mike Shower on here in just a moment. I got to save all my notes on this thing because crazy. All right, let's get you guys all squared away here. Let's see what else you guys have been chatting about. Let's see. Homeschooling is awesome. Sorry, Rick was playing right into my hand when I said I'm not looking at the chat room while I'm talking. He goes, yes, we can be very distracting at times. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Public schooling, not education, said Ron at one point. Well, that's true. They're not necessarily copacetic. Sourdough Steel said half of the reason we chose to homeschool was because they closed our newly remodeled neighborhood school and we would have been forced to go across town. Yeah, nah. Good morning, Bill. Happy hump day to you as well. Happy hump day. All right. Let's see here. Let me get Mike on the line here before I start addressing the rest of your calls and comments. Let me get Mike on the line. See what we can do. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, well, let me call you back. This damn thing didn't pick up. Let me call you again here. I'll try it again. All right, I don't know what what, man. This thing irritates the hell out of me sometimes. What? Where's my No, that's not working. Sometimes you just wish that stuff would work the way that it's supposed to work the first time. What? Okay, let me we're going to try this again. And we're going to do that. Sorry. I'm having a day. I'm having a day here already. Everything was working fine earlier, and then now it's not. For the love of balls. All right. You guys, hold on a second while I suss this out. I'll be right back. Okay. Pissed off. This thing is just, sometimes stuff is just not working. Okay, Mike Shower's going to join us in a second here. We're going to try this another way. Something's bugged in the system, and I literally would have to shut everything off and restart to get it to work the right way. So we're gonna fix it all in here. Anyway, it's a Monday. It's a Monday on a hump day. That's what it's all about. All right, we are coming up on it. Here we go. Thank you, my friends. It's like Monday to the third power. Thank you, Bill. That's exactly right. All right, here we go. Let's do it.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on your favorite radio station and or FM translator, as well as on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and everywhere else. We're worldwide. We're doing it all. Welcome to Hump Day, my friends. Wednesday, middle of the week, downhill slide. You can see Firearms Friday from here. I will be in Fairbanks this weekend. For those of you who are in the Fairbanks area, want to come out and see me at the Go Winter Expo at the Carlson Center. I'll be there. Just come in there and find me. We'll be hanging out, doing our thing all day. It'll be fun. And then that means, by the way, that although we'll be on the air this whole week, that on Monday I have to take the day off because I will be traveling. I'll actually be traveling during the show on Monday. I'll be in the air. I'll be coming back. And so there'll be alternate programming on Monday in both, everywhere. So there'll be alternate programming wherever you're listening. It'll be fine. And then we'll be back on Tuesday. So you get a 3-day weekend. Look at that. It's going to be good. But I'll be up there this weekend and we'll be ready to go. But Monday is a official day off for the show because my arms will be tired. So we'll be doing that. In this hour of the program today, it is Wednesday, and that means we get a chance for the Shower Hour of Power. State Senator Mike Shower is joining us this morning, and we're going to chit-chat with him about, I don't know, wood ticks, lunatics, politics. What do you want to talk about? He's going to talk about it all with us this morning. Let's bring him on the program here and see what he has to say. Good morning, Mike. How are you doing this morning?
Well, apparently I am doing better than your computer program made in China, most likely.
No, I don't know. This thing is made in Australia, actually, but it's something busted this morning, and I would have had to have shut the whole system down to fix it. And there ain't and you know what? This actually sounds better. So we'll just use this from now on because you don't have to, he's a little camera shy, folks. He doesn't want to show up on camera before 9 a.m. because
my hair is not done. I haven't had a chance to dress and put on my makeup. I'm not ready for camera, Michael.
No high heels yet. That's okay. I'm not wearing pants, but nobody knows it, so it's fine. It's all okay. Anyway, let's get into it here. And dive into today's show. I was just saying that I had an interesting conversation with some folks yesterday, a couple different folks, and we were talking about the makeup of the different various communities, and we got talking about Homer, and apparently, this whole no kings thing and everything else, everybody's angry, everybody's agitated, and that it's motivating some people, and there's some money that's starting to flow into the state. There's some new PACs that are coming in, and they're getting money from, all over the place. And there's some outside groups that are now trying to insulate themselves into the statewide elections for like legislative offices and things like that. You were doing some work on this. I know you and I had talked about this a year or two ago, where we talked about you'd been looking at, how do we get conservative groups interested and invested in doing things like that? Give me your thoughts on what's happening right now, because apparently the left is motivated and angry and agitated, and they're throwing money around like it's no tomorrow. What are your thoughts on this outside influence here?
Well, let's talk about the baseline, I suppose. You look at it and who was most motivated last year? I would say the political right was, after 4 years of COVID, after the Biden policies, open borders, lawlessness, weakness on the international stage, being pushed around by China and Russia. And there's a host of things we could talk about that would take too much time, but you can just kind of, list them off. And as I have tried to tell people, Trump is a symptom of what's going on. When the left gets further and further to the left, when they start to advocate for things like we saw with Charlie Kirk's murder, where they try to say, well, both sides are doing this with the violence. I said, no, they're not. Let's be honest and look at it. Who is the one that is picking up with arms? Who are the ones that are committing now atrocities with firearms? Who are most of these so-called mass shooters, which I think it's only 4. I say only, but 4 people to be a mass shooter. I think most people think of, dozens or a lot, but I believe the FBI tracks it as 4 or more is considered a mass shooting. You see all these things happening. And so now Trump gets elected, right? And he's basically taking his administration on the offense against the border, against other countries, against lawlessness, the drug cartels, all these different things. And now I think what can't be forgotten here, Michael, is that when you see the things happening on the left, you have to realize it's not just the left, right? These are not organic protests, the No Kings, right? It is funded. I just saw a report. I read it yesterday, I believe, or the day before, and it was looking at the list of those who are funding the No Kings. Because remember, part of what we're looking at now, people are getting smart and going, follow the money. And it was the standard people. It was the Tide Foundation, George Soros. There was a list of about 7 or 8 top funders. Arabella, of course, is in that. That's a massive left-wing funding organization. There were a few others. And they're funding these things to the tune of about $300 million is what was found so far. It's like 290-something million. So $300 million to fund the so-called wink-wink organic No Kings protest across the nation. So you just spent $350 million for a non-organic protest against a president to call him a king when in fact he's just a duly elected president by not only a majority of the people that voted, but also all the electoral college. He got both this time, right? So this is the left being agitated by those in power. You cannot forget they have seen foreign actors. They've especially seen ones that are tied to China, the CCP, that are here agitating. They're helping give out signs. They caught some of them on video. So it's not just an organic group of left-wing protesters, Michael, that are socialist, Marxist, communist, whatever, that say, we're going to get up and protest Trump because we don't like his policies. This is planned, organized. This march to destroy Western culture, to destroy the United States and our constitutional public has been taking place for a very long time. You're not surprised about that. Probably most of your listeners aren't, because they are activists and they tend to be educated. That's why they listen to your program and talk about things and debate it. This is something that has been going on for a very long time. It is an existential threat to the survival of our nation. And people go, so that's awful tough talk. I said, well, no, it's real. Because look at it. You've taken over the education system. You've taken over the media. You've taken over the entertainment system. And you're looking at things that are changing the narrative to say the West is bad. Western culture is bad. Christianity is bad. The nuclear family is bad. All the things that we would need for our culture to survive. We're mass importing people that don't agree with our culture, that are not coming to the by millions upon millions, thanks to Biden and Harris, accelerated the open border, that are coming here not to become a part of our culture, not to assimilate. They are coming here to get stuff, right? And so when I'm taking that entire little 4-minute diatribe there, what I'm trying to say is these are not organic things. These are planned things to put the United States into a position to just be another part of a new world order, right? Where the United Nations is in charge and the global elites have all the power and the money. If you want to talk about the No Kings, don't be looking at Trump. Look at people like George Soros. Look at people like Starmer. Look at people like those in the United Nations and what they're doing in Europe right now. Free speech doesn't exist in the United Kingdom and other places. The Islamic mass migration is rapidly changing Europe from a free Western culture to something else that's going to resemble a lot more like, downtown somewhere in Saudi Arabia or, Iran than it is going to resemble, the cradle of Western civilization in its own way as it came up from Greece and Italy, etc. So I'll end the lesson talking about it, and that was to set the baseline, Michael, to get us to what's happening here in Alaska. Well, we've always been a cheap date. You know it. I know it.
Right,
Everybody in your
right.
program knows it. And they realize, hey, we got stuff we can do in Alaska. They can kind of solidify the left coast, right? California, Oregon, Washington. If they can get Alaska cheaply, and they can get some of these left wing people that are, wink, wink, I'm an independent, like one of your younger independent Democrats that says he's an independent from Anchorage when he's not,
Right.
because caucuses with, votes with, gets funded by the Democrats, and then says he's an independent. I'm like, yeah, sure you are, pal. Here's that beachfront property in Arizona I want to sell you. So they realize what all this comes down to, Michael, is they realize an opportunity. They think they've agitated the left enough that if they keep them funded, they get the non-organic protest, they get their base fired up, that possibly they can win some seats. They could take over the Alaska legislature because they're already getting it with the help of a few Republicans, and they can enact left-wing policies. They can gerrymander districts, because people, remember, have been so upset about all the gerrymandering taking place, and look what those Republicans are doing. I'm like, you guys have been doing this forever. Both sides have done it. Both sides can have or can take some of the blame, but they just gerrymandered away a Senate district last time here in Alaska, and nobody even mentions that. They don't talk about it. That's why there's now 9 Democrat seats instead of 7 when I first got there, and there's only 11 Republicans left, and so. And the same thing happening in the House. So gerrymandering takes place, Michael. The money's flowing in. We're going to see the initiative process. We got that battle coming up, as you well know, next year. And you're going to see more of these independent. Oh, by the way, I got to say this, and I'll stop. The initial Johnny Carson opening monologue is they are doing this now in other parts. I'm talking to people around the country where the Democrats are now running Republicans. In other words, they're getting their people saying, run as a Republican, even though we know you're a Democrat. Now, people are finding them out and looking at their donations and their history, but it's hard to get that word out because 90% of the electorate doesn't pay attention, doesn't know. They just show up to the voting booth, if they show up at all, and they see R or D, and they vote kind of where their allegiances lie, and that's it. And so same thing happens here, brother. Same problem. So there's a lot going on behind this, a lot.
So, I mean, you unloaded a lot there on it, and I think it is an attack on Western culture. I think that that there's a lot of useful idiots out there who will follow the mantra no matter what, because that's the way people are. People en masse are sheep, both on the left and on the right. They can be sheep, but it is a danger to our society, and it's moving there. But the question is, how do we combat it, Mike? I mean, if it is, the leftists are doing this, and the world, the world elites are doing this, and how do we, as conservative, common sense kind of people who just, rugged individualists who just want to be left alone, how do we fix this then? What's the answer?
First question, and it's just one to you because it's important, is do you think, Michael, and again, I know it's a rhetorical question with us in your audience, do you think they're going to just leave us alone to live our lives in peace?
No, I mean, exactly. I don't think it's going to happen. This is why we often say that government is what happens to you when you stop paying attention. You can't just go wander off in the pucker brush and say, I just want to be left alone, because they're not going to leave you alone. So you're going to have to get engaged. I understand that. But again, I was talking more towards our philosophy of who we are as a people. Those who are more conservative and on the right, we are generally speaking more, we just want to be left alone. We just want to do our own thing. We don't necessarily want to be bothered, but we have to be engaged.
That's the point. That's why I ask it. It was for the audience because we've talked about this before. However, people need to understand. They go, I just want to be left alone. I don't want to do politics. So let me give some ideas, right? Because it's something that's important. We talk all the time about trying to get people engaged. I think most of your audience is. It's not so much your audience. We don't need to worry about them. I'd say most people listen to your program, they are engaged and they do go vote, and maybe they give a little bit of money, even if it's a tiny bit, or maybe they make some phone calls for good candidates, or they spread their message on social media, or they might even walk a neighborhood for them once or twice. In other words, the people on your program probably are active enough because they're paying attention. They do something. Anything matters, folks. Many hands makes light work. But we've said this before over and over again. It's not the people here that we have to worry about. It's trying to get the other 90% of the people that aren't paying attention and letting it happen because they want to be left alone, which is why I asked the rhetorical question. How do we get them involved? I will give you one good example. It just happened last night. Michelle and I went to the first Turning Point chapter meeting here, run by 3 young kids. They started it up at the Matsu Central College. And we went there and listened and just listened to these guys. They had about, I'd say there was about 40 people in the room, maybe ballpark 40, 45, something like that. It was a small room they had in one of the, areas, a little meeting hall thing, and they had it pretty much packed. And so first time, and they were excited. They were talking. The younger kids were sharing stuff. These are, kids in late teens, early to mid 20s. And there was a few adults there kind of listening. And Michelle and I had heard about it, and they were open to invitation. Here's kids, Michael, that were like talking about the Charlie Kirk murder and what's happening on the left. And these are kids that are on the political right with their beliefs, what they're aligned, their values aligned were on the right side of the spectrum, conservative values. Some were Christians, some weren't, but pro-freedom, Western culture, our representative republic, et cetera, et cetera. And I just sat, listen, Michael, and it was this hope of here's young kids. You always go, oh, young kids are liberal, they're left. Like, no, they're not. They're sitting on a college campus in Alaska going, what do we do? Asking us questions like, how do we get involved? How do we make a difference? How do we gather together because we have nowhere to vent, nowhere to talk. It was awesome. And it was hope. And they're spreading the message, and they're inviting more people, and they want to get other kids involved. And I invited some of them. I talked to them after and go, you know what I'd love to see you guys do? This is perfect for us because we never get to hear you guys. And we always ask ourselves, how come we don't have any young people at our district meetings for the Republican Party? And I'm not saying it has to be Republican, but being an activist, get out there, get engaged, invite them. You know what the girl leading it told me? And we're probably on a break coming up. I know. Said this. She said this to me, Mike. She's like, I don't know who to talk to. Who do I talk to do these things? Where do I start? That's an excellent question, my friend.
Yeah, no, that is an excellent question. And historically, if you look at what's going on, the left, ironically, is losing predominantly the male youth at this point. Millennials and Gen Z are trending more and more towards the libertarian / conservative side. More libertarian than conservative, but they are moving in that direction. And it's because I think in a lot of ways, the left has become so unhinged in some of their beliefs and some of their actions that people are turned off by it. And I think this gives us an opportunity, and we need to
grab it. Yes,
absolutely. All right. We're going to continue here. Mike Shower's our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more in just a moment.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're continuing now. Mike Shower is our guest. Jeff had a great comment. I want to highlight this. Jeffrey Coghill. Oops, wrong one. And he said, the most dangerous man is the one that just wanted to be left alone. If he actually does something, Jeff, I agree with you. The most dangerous people are the ones that just want to be left alone because they're willing to do almost anything to just be left alone. But you've got, sometimes you have to engage. Sometimes that's you have to do what you have to do. I mean, that's the premise of almost any Louis L'Amour novel that you've ever read, is that there was a guy that just wanted to be left alone, but people wouldn't. So he had to fix the problem. And that's kind of where we're at right now, Mike.
Yeah, it was not wrong. But it would be awful nice if we realize that they never are going to leave us alone, that the march of the whole group of leftists put together, socialist, communist, Marxist, etc., their entire mantra is to essentially take over. It is to gain power through the government and have the point of the government gun to enforce everybody's good morals on them, their worldview, their ideology. That's their goal. It's no different than Islam. Islam's goal, you can say what you want, its goal is world domination, for everybody to be under the banner of Islam. They are coming for you whether you like it or not. I agree with this comment. That's a dangerous person. But wouldn't it be nice if we could figure out how to prevent us from ever having to become that dangerous person, because we cut it off at the pass, because we got involved before it got there. We gave some of our time, treasure, and blood to make sure we didn't end up in that place, right? So that they are forced to leave us alone because we had this constitutional republic with law and order and things that protect us, you know, and a system in place that wouldn't happen. Now that's been being unraveled as we talk about it left and right around us. And certainly in places like Europe, I mean, there's almost nothing left of it, although some of the countries are starting to kick back. But the question becomes is rather than waiting for them to come to your door and knock on it, how about we get involved before that happens and prevent them from even getting to our door, right? Because what was that old saying? I know we've said it before in the program. It's like, you know, when they came for the so-and-so type of people, I said nothing. Then when they came for the next group, I still said nothing. When they came for the next group, I said nothing. But when they finally came for me, there was nobody left. Right. So that's my point. Why don't we get a little more proactive and prevent us from ever getting to that point? And this, I'm going to circle back to it. This younger generation, Michael, I'm seeing stuff like I saw last night, Michelle and I did in that group. I had a strange emotion I haven't had in a while. Hope. I was like, oh, this is encouraging. This is hopeful.
Good, right.
This is the younger generation speaking up and speaking out and going, we're ready to get involved. And it was, many of them were Christian with, you know, messages of love and hope, but also like, you know, their activism. You can see it, like they want to get involved. They want to make a difference. You said, and it's true, and Charlie Kirk talked about it, and one of the reasons he was murdered because the man was effective and he was changing hearts and minds of young kids. But the whole push on toxic masculinity, what feminism has done not only to women in this country in the West, but what it's done to young men of all colors, doesn't, you know, they're so focused on trying to destroy the white culture and say how bad white people are, right, and divide us by race. They're doing a really good job of split. Oh, black and brown, you know, against white, against yellow, Asian, against this, whatever, right? And young men of all colors, white, black, Asian, Latino, you name it, have been beaten down so hard and say they're the problem, but especially white males, you're the problem. You're toxic. You're masculine. You're this, you're that. And they're going, wait, what? All I've done is try to grow up, and you're telling me I'm the problem of all the world's problems are me? And they're rebelling, as they should, to that toxic message.
Like I said, that's why I think they're losing the millennial age and Gen Z men because of that. But I also want to temper this a little bit. I think Sourdough Steel, I've only got 45 seconds here, but Sourdough Steel said the answer to the left isn't the right. Sorry, it's somewhere in the middle. And I would agree with that I'm looking for more of a balance. Doesn't have to be all conservative, but it has to be a balance. And that's, again, why I think many of these men, they're not necessarily moving to conservatism. They're moving more towards the libertarian, a little bit of conservatism, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little more moderate. But we've got to find and meet them in the middle there. That's what we need to do. But I'm not going to let you answer that because we're 10 seconds out. I know you can't hold yourself to 10 seconds. So we'll pick this up on the other side. State Senator Mike Shower, our guest on the program. Please like and share. Like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that kind of stuff. Let's get to it. Here we go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Continuing now with State Senator Mike Shower. I forgot to mention it earlier today, and I apologize for that. But coming up tomorrow on the program, Congressman Nick Begich will be joining us at 25 after 7 in hour 2. Well, I only get him for 2 segments. I don't know what's going on. Why can't I get him for a full hour? But I'll take what I can get. Took me almost 3 months to get this, folks, to get this interview with Nick tomorrow at 7:25. So Congressman Nick Begich tomorrow morning on the program. Be here or be square. During the during the break, we were just talking with Mike about why specifically these millennial and Gen Z, mostly men, are moving more towards the middle, more towards conservative, away from the progressive party. Whether it's libertarianism or conservatism. And we were looking for that balance in the middle with Sourdough Steel's comment about the answer to the left isn't the right, it's somewhere in the middle. And I wanted to get Mike's take on that because he's been using some hard language here about, Marxist and socialist and progressive movements and everything else. And it's the left. But what we need is a balance, right, Mike? I mean, you're not asking for a full conservative everybody has to change or else, but we need to have some balance in this country, right?
Well, I mean, show me. Well, first thing on Nick, I want to say that number one, Congressman Baker's is doing a fantastic job. And I know we finally got, I guess, what is apparently a very progressive, so-called air quotes, pastor, who's one of those types with the LGBT and all the rest of the stuff that comes with some of the churches today, out of Anchorage that's announced. And, I'm like, whatever. I'm like, why even run against Nick? He is doing a fantastic job. Just so you know, I did see him over the weekend very briefly, and I always go up and shake his hand real quick and just say hi because the man is busy. But you guys understand that dude is moving at light speed. He is all over the place. He is a busy man. And I know you know this, Michael, but he is hard to get in touch with because that dude is probably pulling 16, 17-hour days, almost 7 days a week. That guy is the Energizer Bunny, just for the crowd's perspective. I don't even bug him at these events. I literally go up and say, hey, brother, how you doing? Shake his hand. Good job. And I walk away because I know he's got tons of people who want to talk to him. If it's real important, I'll schedule time with him, which is hard to get. Anyways, so I just wanted to say that about him. But look, tell me where I have said I want everybody to go hard right. I haven't ever said that. And I'm not saying Sourdough Steel said it. I'm trying to answer the question. I think most things in life, Michael, are nice to have a balance, but let's be honest. What has happened over the last 100 years? Again, I go back to the same thing I said. They are executing their battle plan very well. Take over the education industry, take over, the media, take over, and destroy the nuclear family, divide people by race, by wealth, by every little thing they can. And it's part of what they do. And so when you say, if somebody's to say, well, the balance to the left is not to go over to the right, where else are you going to go? The middle today is, literally look at Elon, look at Bill Maher, look at some of the others. The middle is saying things that 20 years ago, the right was saying. The whole Overton window has shifted to the left, that now somebody can believe that they're a woman when they're not. And people are actually saying, well, a man can have a baby. No, they can't biologically. That's a person that's a biological male that is confused about what gender they are, or they have gender dysphoria, or whatever the issues may be. But my point is, Michael, it's gone so far to the left that maybe the answer is the right. And when I say that, that doesn't mean Republican necessarily. That doesn't mean any other things that you would want to brand on the right side of the political spectrum. What it means is a return to some sanity, a return to, like you said, and maybe Sourdough says too, some balance, right? What does that look like? Well, people that believe in our constitutional republic, people that believe in those individual freedoms and liberty. There's some, if you want to, I've taken the test. I fall somewhere in that libertarian conservative spectrum based on what I believe. When I look at the party system we have today, as far as where my values are aligned and where I fall, it's going to generally be Republican. Why? Because that's the only, we kind of have a two-party system. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Right. But like all things, Michael, it's like ranked choice voting. I hate it. I don't like it. I don't want to use it. Well, you know what? Right now we have it. So we better learn how to use it, or we're going to get our butts kicked. So you learn how to use what you have. Right now we have a two-party system. We need to align the best we can to have some balance. But we have swung so far left. The narrative has been so controlled for so long. Our kids are being indoctrinated so well and so completely in schools all the way up, especially through colleges that are more indoctrination than education centers in a lot of ways. You look at it and go, well, what are we supposed to do? Where do you send kids if you go, the balance is not to teach them conservative values of freedom and the Constitution and our republic and morals and ethics? What else do you teach them than those things that are on the right side of the political spectrum to have some balance?
And that's the question of where the right side. It's ironic that the Zell Miller Democratic Party, and for those of you who don't remember Zell Miller, he was a Democratic senator in the U.S. Senate who wrote a book called A National Party No More. I don't know if you remember that. But when the Zell Miller Democratic Party is on the right, according to today's spectrum, that's part of the problem. Like you said, the whole Overton window has shifted dramatically to the left. It's actually it's interesting is that the Overton window has split. It's shifting more to the left on the left, and it's shifting some more to the right on the right. And the people who were in the middle, the old blue dog Democrats and the more moderate Republicans, they're the ones that are kind of being left. And I think they're the ones that are throwing their hands up a lot of times going, there's nothing for me. I can't agree with everything that the Trump people on the right are saying. I definitely can't agree with the stuff that the women in men's sports experts, people on the left are saying. And so why bother? And I think that's part of the problem.
Well, look, Michael, I'm not going to say that's wrong because I agree with that. I think that I don't want to say a majority because you don't ever know the actual numbers, but a good portion of the country is somewhere in the middle. And if you take in the blue dog Democrats, moderate Republicans, whatever that is defined as today, because that'd be really weird in Alaska with how they, align when they get to Juneau. And then those that would lean politically right, but not whatever the far right is called, right? Because I think we can. It's a little harder to me to define necessarily what the hard right is because I don't see them as big groups and all this. On the left, it's pretty easy, right? You got a whole cobble of people that are Democrat Socialists of America, which are really communist, right? They just renamed themselves. But the communism, Marxism, progressivism, there's a lot of isms, right? And they're pretty clear and distinct when you start looking at them, even though they've kind of figured out how to cobble themselves together under the banner of the likes of either Black Lives Matter or Antifa or other groups that have become front groups funded by deep pockets, right? That then do the organic protests, et cetera, et cetera. So a little easier to define, I think, in some ways. But this is what I'm talking about when I said the Turning Point chapter I went to last night. There's something they said 60,000 something now across the nation in high schools and colleges, et cetera, where there was 32 or 3,800 before Charlie was murdered. It's amazing to see this, but that's where I said, this is the opportunity, Michael, to reach out to young men and women, because it wasn't just young men there. I'd say probably 60-40 roughly. So there was a lot of young ladies there too. And they were speaking up. And the one that was primarily running it was a young lady. She had just graduated from college. She said she's out of school now. She's back running this because this is needed to give us an alternative to, I couldn't tell you how often when we sat and talked with her for a little bit, everybody broke into groups and we're talking because I wanted to just say, hey, we'd like to come back and listen once in a while if it's okay. She's like, absolutely, you're welcome. And I said, this is a bridge for us. And more important because Representative McCabe and I were the two elected people that were there. I think Kathy McCollum was there from the school board, but we mostly just listen because I'm this is a bridge for us. We never get to hear you guys. And this is a perfect place for us to say, listen, what matters to you? What are you guys looking for? And I said at the same time, now I can ask you, I said, I'd love to invite you to some Republican meetings just to come talk to us and tell us what's on your mind and what matters to you. Because if we're going to capture their hearts and minds, not for the Republican Party per se, but to get them engaged, because that's what we're talking about, right? How do we get them into the process? How do we get them engaged? This young girl's I actually kind of am interested in politics. I've never wanted to say it. I felt like they all said this, Michael, every one of them talking last night that were because some of them were kind of timid. They didn't want to say anything. One or two of the girls even said that when they stood up, I have felt my entire life, including through college and school, that I couldn't voice my values, that what I thought, because I was going to get shouted down. My professors were going to give me a bad grade because most of them lean left or very left. They all felt like they were oppressed in the sense of true oppression, like they couldn't speak their mind. They couldn't say what they believed in. They couldn't gather together. They were desperate for that. It came out over and over again last night. And she was saying, she's like, I've always been kind of interested in politics, but I didn't really want to say anything. The one guy said, he's like, yeah, my entire family has shunned me because they're all Democrats. They won't talk to me now because after Charlie Kirk's murder, he was saying, this is where I stand. This is it. And they've literally all, and another young man stood up and said the same thing. Two younger men. They said that my family's essentially shunned me because they're all leftist, left of center. And now they won't talk to me because I'm doing the Turning Point thing. I'm like, wow. And they're like, I don't care. I'm tired of being treated this way. This is a group for me. This is, it was fascinating to watch that dynamic and to know that that's happening tens of thousands of times across the country in these chapters now where people are. So this is that opportunity. That's what I'm saying. I don't disagree with Sourdough and you on this. The answer is not to go hard right or way over here. The answer is to give the younger generation a venue and an opportunity to voice what they believe, to tell us what they are looking for, to make sure that we have good policy. So we're not just handing them a bucket of garbage when we're like, okay, we screwed it all up. Good luck. Here you go, pal. It's to listen to them and go, what can we do for you? How can we work together as we eventually hand off the baton to you and let you guys run it, because it's going to be your show sooner than you think. So this bridge is just fascinating to me, Michael. And I agree. I am a conservative guy, right? Obviously we've talked about things here, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to tell the left how they should do things. Somebody that's a leftist or a Democrat, I'm going to say, I'm going to fight for what I believe in, and for me, it's personal freedom, the constitutional values, the Bill of Rights, the things that we have that protect us. I think those are important values that we need as a country. And you certainly need it as an offset, because the other side, I couldn't disagree more with them on many of the things they believe in, we talked about, open borders and craziness for, like gender stuff and and they don't have law and order. I was just reading one yesterday or the day before, I think it was. Some guy got released because they're talking about this a lot. Some guy got released 91 felonies, 91. And like 2 of them were like attempted murder. And the judge there, a other leftist judge, ooh, here we go again, right? We have that same thing up here in Alaska, had released him and on like a $9,500 bail. And he went out and did another crime. And you're like, shocking. I'm shocked that he committed another crime. You know what I mean?
Right.
But those are leftist policies that gave us things like SB 91. Right. Soft on crime. My question for them, how many victims does it take before you think no more chances? Right. The old 3 strikes law. I mean, at some point you go, partner, you're never going to be rehabilitated. And, we just going to put you behind bars, at some point.
Second, third, fourth, fifth chances. I mean, I definitely see that. There's a lot to unpack here in what we've been talking about this morning, but we're up against the break again. So we're going to continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. We've got more coming up in the next segment. We will dive into it on the state level and what he sees as the vision for the future of the state. Mike Shower, our guest, senator, and candidate for lieutenant governor. Back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we are continuing ahead here. Mike Shower is our guest. And I'm just looking for, Mike, more than anything else, I'm looking for a balance. And across the state, I'm looking for a balance. And part of the problem here is that balance becomes nearly impossible. We've got a judiciary that is seriously progressive. We've got a legislature that, although it has a Republican majority, is now controlled and directed by the progressives on the left. And parts of the party have been subsumed here in the state of Alaska. And so even though I'm looking for a balance, it's hard. It's like you almost have to go hardcore in one direction long enough just to get to the middle so that you can slow down.
That's not unlike what I was that's a really good summation, Michael. I mean, that's kind of what I was trying to get to before. I mean, if the answer is not the left, as the question you and one of your listeners posed, what is it? Where do you send young people? What do you teach them other than conservative values, right? And so, I mean, if the opposition to Marxism, communism, Leninism, all the isms is what? Just move a little bit to the right, just don't listen to them? Or do you teach them, the Constitution? Do you teach them what individual liberty means, what was fought for, and what founded this country? Do you teach them moral and ethical principles? You notice I'm shying away from saying biblical principles because that sets some people off. But the reality is a lot of our value system came from Christian values, biblical values, as far as things like, the 10 Commandments and our laws that flowed from them. You go back to the Magna Carta. I mean, so you can look at, if you're going to talk about things and baseline it, where did a lot of our values come from that built Western civilization? So I'm saying that the counter sometimes to a certain thing is to teach the other thing. If it's communism, Marxism, Leninism, progressivism, and all the isms on the left, well, then why wouldn't we teach constitutional republic, right? And the founding of Western civilization with those Christian values that got us here. It doesn't mean you need to be a Christian. It doesn't mean you have to be that, right? We have atheists and everything else in this country, right? So what's the counter? If you want the balance, then you probably need to teach the other stuff too, and let people fall wherever they will based on what they choose to believe, because they have the freedom to do it. And even inside of the Christian world, if you go to the biblical values, God gave you free will. That's what I believe. So you have a choice to choose and do what you want. But if there's a balance to one side, Michael, you got to teach the other and then let people choose. And that's what I'm saying right now. The kids are desperate for it. It was amazing last night to listen to the stuff they said.
Well, and here's the difference between the two philosophical sides, the right and the left, all right, or the conservatives and the progressives, I guess, whatever label you want to put on it. The problem is that most people who are on the right don't want to necessarily impose. There are some. I'm painting with a broad brush here. They don't necessarily want to impose their will or viewpoint on people, but those on the left want everybody to conform to their values, and they want to utilize government as a bludgeon to force that. Now, there are some issues on the right where the right is doing that, but for the most part, those people, again, just want to be left alone. But people on the left and in that value set, generally speaking, it's not enough that they can believe one thing and we can believe another. It's that they want to force everyone to believe what they believe. And that is the main problem here.
Well, yes, and you have this, this injury thing too, right? The victimhood thing that they're really good at pushing, and they figured out how to, so, lack of a better term, to push people's buttons, right? If you're a victim, you can constantly and forever be a victim, and then you can get what you want. You can force people to be, shamed into, letting you get away with virtually anything. If you can say, I'm oppressed. And so therefore, when you're really not. And so you want to talk about some oppression of speech. Let's talk about these young kids last night. You should have heard what they were saying about how they felt like they could never say anything, or they were going to be literally affected. They were going to get bad grades. They were going to be shunned. They were going to have people on their face screaming at them. And they've been kowtowed. They've literally been pushed down, for this whole time. So that's a real form of oppression. I'm not talking, let's be clear here for people that are listening. I'm not saying, oh, go to the right and be a Republican. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that I'm talking about teaching values. I'm talking about teaching conservative principles like the foundation of the nation, like looking and reading the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the things that we were given to us by people that were really good at debating what system of governance would matter, so people had the maximum freedom and opportunity in their life, not controlled by the government, not told like by the king what they could and couldn't do. Right? Because we're going to talk real kings here. If we're going to talk no kings, let's talk about what a king looked like when we had to fought a revolution to get away from somebody telling us what we could do. That's my point, Michael, is you teach those value systems. This doesn't mean I'm, because people think, oh, you're saying everybody go join the Republican Party. No, I'm not. I mean, great. I hope you do. It's got, in my opinion, better values, but I have, that. Everybody listens to this program. Right. But no, I've had issues with the Republican Party, right? But not necessarily. I'm talking values. It's very different.
Well, and part of our problem, Sourdough Steel makes the point that part of our problem is there's people who are in the Republican Party who are in office who don't even follow the supposed value. And that's part of the big problem.
I can't argue that. I can't argue his point. Valid.
All right. 10 seconds. We're about to rejoin the radio. Please like and share, follow, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Let's get to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Mike Shower, our guest.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Continuing now with State Senator Mike Shower. One final segment of the show today. Let's pull it back more towards the state issues, Mike. Because obviously as a state senator, you have some insight into that. And as a candidate for lieutenant governor, you may have some sway in the future into which direction the state is going. We're kind of at a crisis point here in the state of Alaska. We've got a bloated government. We spend much more than we take in. We are facing a $1.5 billion plus deficit this coming year. Even if we took all of the permanent funds, $660 million remaining in the permanent fund payouts, so permanent fund dividends, we would still not, barely make a dent into that deficit. We'd still have nearly $1 billion deficit. And so we've got some real hard choices that are going to be coming up here. And as a legislator who's seen how the sausage is made and see how things are working, what do we have to look forward to? What is your vision? What is your ticket's vision for where we go as a state? And how do we pull ourselves back from the brink?
Best time to plant a tree, Michael, was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And we've missed the opportunity for years running. We've said it on this program. I've said it on the floor, and I've been saying it for many years since, at least 4, 5, 6 years now, that we have to act. We have to act now. Because next year and the year after it's going to be too late. And we're kind of getting to that point where it's becoming too late. If we would have done this 5 years ago, we had money. We had more money, right? We had a sense of where we could have capped ourselves. So look, all this circles back to the same thing we've been saying like a broken record on this program and everywhere else. Anybody will listen. The clarion call is the fiscal policy working group. Not perfect, but a structure that's going to put us on a stable and sustainable flight path for this state forever, right? Or as long as we can get people not to mess with it in the legislature in the future. You're going to have to do what we have talked about, which is everybody's going to have to have a little bit of pain in the sense of things they don't like for this to work, because we don't all agree on everything, right? We need desperately to have a spending cap that doesn't work. There are long-serving legislators that will fight that to the death because they see it as taking power away from them being able to move the levers every year. But if we don't cap our spending, we're going to have these years where we don't put the money away and we will spend it. They will, depending on who the governor is and who actually controls the legislature, $180 million of education spending. Oh, we're just getting started. That was a small BSA. They want a $1,400 BSA increase. They want an $1,800 BSA increase. They want defined benefits for all state employees that are going to be hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Listening to the actuarials, they're going to want to spend on other things. They've got so many things they want to spend your money on, right? So if we don't put a cap on it, Michael, there is no stability, because we could overspend the second we get money. And if we add taxes, then one of the reasons I'm so resistant without this plan to any kind of taxation is we will simply spend it. You and I have talked about this. Does that policy, does that structure discuss how we may have to tax at some point? Yes, it does. But it also talks to do that. You better have the spending cap, because I will never vote for it without it, because we will spend it. It means we need to have a structure in place to audit and to sunset government spending and programs we no longer need, and PCNs that have been vacant for 18 months or 3 years or 5 years, like we still have hundreds and hundreds of them. So it's the whole approach to this, Michael. If we're going to do this and make it work, it has to be a balanced structure. And by the way, who I'm running with agrees with all of this. We just talked about it yesterday. That's how we're going to make this work. It's the only way we're going to make it work. And the governor just can't do it, right? The legislature could do it, but then they do need the governor to be on board with it, right? Because there's veto potential if you don't have that, the whole program. If it's just like, oh, well, we're just going to do taxes. And trust me, Lucy, I'm not going to pull the football. We'll get to the spending cap next year. I'm like, yeah, sure you will. No way. That's the problem, right? There is no trust, because it goes, oh, taxes. Oh, yeah, we'll vote for taxes, but trust us. No, we're not going to do that, right? Same thing. We came up, I think, and I have to go back and read it again, but I believe we said maybe maximum $700 million of reductions to spending. It's something, right? But we all know there's something. Are we going to find $2 billion, $1.5 billion in cuts? Is there going to be the will to do that? Are people going to scream bloody? Of course, I know. I'm trying to be realistic, right, in this. Can we find $400 or $500 million? I actually believe we can, and not that difficult, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, like the PCNs. The ones Naresh helped me find, my chief of staff, really good money, Naresh. He found, I think we're 800 or 900 vacant PCNs, more than 1,800, more than 18 months they've been vacant. Well, Michael, that's about $170, $180 million, something ballparkish. I mean, the point is you start finding these little things. Well, those little things, when you find 6, 8, 10 of them through auditing and check, that starts to add up, right? And then you cap yourselves for making sure that you can't overspend moving forward, tied to something like the CPI index. Give us something, right? So we don't overgrow. Right. And when it contracts, you have to bring it down a little bit. Government doesn't just get spending, et cetera, et cetera. That's a big part of what we're talking about here. How do we do this? Well, you're going to have a structure in place, and everybody's going to have some stuff they don't like, because that's going to bring the other stuff that they do like. But you can't get the other people to vote for it and get all this to move if you don't have the whole thing in place.
Well, and I want people to hear what you're saying, because again, there's some commentary in the chat room about, oh, he just wants to tax Alaskans. You just want, again,
yeah, what did I say?
You were very clear. You were very clear. You were very clear that the only way that you would support any kind of tax, and this was the same stance that Ben Carpenter took, was that it has to be part of a holistic plan that includes a spending cap, some kind of regulator on government, so that if there is a tax, that money then offsets some of the other things, because they can't spend beyond what they are allotted. And that, as you said, that's what they fight against, because they don't want to have the reins put on them. The legislature does not want to be controlled or regulated.
And let's talk about this group, because you have a lot of very pro PFD, which I have been, Michael, since I have been in the legislature. Every year I have voted for or put in myself the amendments for a statutory PFD, and then a 50-50 PFD. You may remember the only statutory PFD that has passed the body since Walker started vetoing it was my amendment in the Senate in 2022, which passed a full statutory PFD. It's the only time in a decade that we've had that. Plus, And so don't start talking about, oh, it said taxes. No, I didn't. I said it's part of a comprehensive package only. I've never voted for a tax. And I'm not going to until I see a comprehensive plan that solves the problem. By the way, in that solution, Michael, is a 50-50, which is what I've always said is as low as I'm willing to go, unless I see massive reductions to state spending and a structure in place that's going to do it. The 50-50 seems fair to me because it's slightly less than statutory. It's still not a whole lot less, but it's an equal split of the earnings. And this is what Ben Carpenter said when people down there were lying, because let's call what they did when they campaigned against him. They were flat out lying. Ben Carpenter never said he supported taxes. What he said was he was talking about the types of taxes we might have if there was a full fiscal plan in place that had things like the spending cap and a lock of the PFD away so it was protected forever at a 50-50. That's the rate of those of us that were Republicans or conservatives when we had the fiscal policy working group. I wasn't willing to go less than that because I don't think that's fair. And then that was Ben's point. We've talked about that in the program before. If you're going to tax and you go the 50-50 on the PFD and you're going to spend more, then the legislators and the governor should have to go to the people and go, hey, by the way, we want to add another, $500 million of spending on education and defined benefits. They should have to go to the people and go, hey, we're going to take something from you to give it to the state. We're going to take taxes in the form of income or sales tax or whatever it is. And then they have to make the hard decision when they campaign and go, yeah, I voted for that tax, by the way. And then people don't like them. They're in danger of losing their. See how it's tied together? That's the point. I take the PFD. It's easy. They should have to go to you and beg of why they've got to tax you and take your hard-earned dollars before they should ever have to do anything freely. That's the point of how it's tied together.
I agree. You got about 90 seconds here. I'm going to let you summate, Mike, for today on where the state goes and what we need to do. 90 seconds.
Well, look, Michael, for maybe one of the most important things for us, well, it is resource development. I'll tell you a linchpin right now is the Port McKenzie rail extension, that 32 miles. If we don't get that, West Asitna access, Ambler Road, the LNG pipeline, all these things fail and stall. That's a linchpin for us in economic development. We are a resource extraction state. We need to get off the bench and get in the game. The Trump administration is trying to help us. I know I and others are working directly with our congressional delegation to move those things and get the approvals, but we have to get off our rear ends and get in the game. And we have to entice investors. And the way we're going to do it is what we just talked about for 6 or 7 minutes, which is a stable and sustainable state government that people know isn't going to come after them, because we got our act together. And if we do those things moving forward, people will invest and we'll be in good shape.
Okay. All right. I gave you the ding there. All right. We are ready to pull out tomorrow. Nick Begich on the program at 7:25. Mike Shower, thank you so much for coming on board, my friend. Appreciate it.
Happy to, as always.
All right. Hold the line for a second. Folks, we're out of time. We will see you guys tomorrow. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show. All right, Mike. Final bite at the apple. You got.
No,
I'll give you 3 minutes.
I think that's the important thing, Michael, that you asked there. It's just
state stuff here is just. I mean, we are going to have a complete sea change in how we do business in the state of Alaska, and as you said, the legislature is completely reticent to do that. And I don't know how we overcome that, Mike. I really don't.
Well, look, let me give you an example. This last week, I was at a AMAC conference. I had to call in online because I wasn't here. But it was 2 representatives, Democrats from the House that were there, myself, Michael Chambers, and a couple others, the moderator. But the 4 of us were the debaters, if you will. Chambers and myself kind of on the right side of the spectrum. The Democrats obviously way on the left side, even though one says he's an independent, wink, wink. So, but the debate kind of went into things. And of course, it went to the dividend because that was kind of the premise of talking about it, protecting it, et cetera. And we discussed this and went to it. And what did they keep saying? Well, if we have a supersized dividend, they kept using all the terms, right? Because they all agree on how they got to destroy the dividend. It was like, we're going to find $2 billion in cuts. I'm like, stop. Here you go again. It's like the Ronald Reagan thing. It's like, here you go again. Fear, and he's like, I'm not fear mongering. So I said, well, they're trying to scare you guys. It's fear mongering. It's like, you're going to pick up the phone and there's not going to be any troopers. The kids are going to starve. The schools, we're going to have to fire teachers. Everything they say, they try to relate the dividend like it's going to kill government services. And that's not what happens. That's not the intent. But that's kind of what you said with the legislature as far as how we are doing business, Michael. But the answer is really simple when you look at it. It is that we have to show the business world. Remember what I told you about that majority leader, the Senate majority leader said earlier this year with my jaw just, I was watching the conference live and I'm like, I can't believe you said that. The majority leader, she said, without the public sector, there is no private sector. And I'm like, what? That's exactly 180 degrees from reality. If there's no private sector creating wealth for you to tax, there is no public sector because you got no money. There is no government. But people believe that and say these things that are just insane.
Right.
If you don't come up with a plan, Michael, and show as a state government that we can live within our means, that we're going to limit our appetite for money moving forward, that we have a stable and sustainable state government and tax structure that businesses that plan on a 20, 30, 50-year timeline can rely upon, people don't want to invest here. If they don't invest here, we don't have resource development and other types of projects and create whatever industry we can. So our people have jobs and want to stay here, and our kids want to stay here. And by the way, there's a tax structure in place so that the government can have money to have the things we do need: roads, infrastructure, airports. But those are important, right? A decent school system, absolutely, they're important. Law enforcement, they're important, right? But you're not going to have those things if you don't have an industry to support them with taxation. So maybe the most important thing we can do as a government, Michael, is to show the business world and everybody else that we are going to get our act together. We're going to have some common sense. We're going to have a stable structure. And then people can go, all right, I know what Alaska is going to do for the next 20 or 30 years. I'm comfortable taking my personal money and investing in that state. And that's going to boom us, Michael. That's the key of everything. That's the key.
State Senator Mike Shower, our guest. Thank you, Mike, for coming on board. We appreciate it. And we will talk to you again soon. Okay.
Sounds good, man. See you guys.
Thanks for being here. All right, folks, we are out of time for today. Tomorrow, we'll have something. And then Nick Begich in hour 2, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll see you then. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.